My group, or my title, is Applied Computing and Visualization, and my work at the lab has kind of centered around these different areas here. First of all, the high performance computing data center and the last system we put in, the fission computer. It's about 100 teraflops. The other half of my work in the cave in the Caves building and in visualization. Our facilities they're targeted to practical applied energy, applied engineering. They're not for they're right sized for the size of our lab and for the size of our programs. So when Jameson sees the power wall, 12 foot by 6, it's really small compared to what Oak Ridge has, but it's like I said, it's right sized for applied engineering. Next slide. This is the mic keeps cutting out. Is that because I moved my head? Outside? Okay. So this is a kind of the geek technical details of the resources that we have at the lab. The cave is a 4-wall Mech-9 system, 6 megapixels. We use InterSense ultrasonic tracking. It gives us a pretty large coverage area. We use it a lot for, immersive visualization work, a lot of facility tours. As being a nuclear energy lab, there's certain parts of the lab that we don't spend a lot of, having a virtual facility is very helpful. And then a ton of STEM outreach. Sometimes I like to draw a picture of the demographics of our visitors, and I kind of draw it as a bimodal distribution. Down at the what some might call the low end of this hump of the distribution is the K-12s, the fourth graders. There's a ton of fourth graders. And at the high end of the bimodal distribution, you might say that's the politicians and the laboratory director and the governor and the senators and stuff like that. And everybody always says there's some ambiguity as to which hump is the most expertise and the smartest. Sometimes the fourth graders really ask good questions. Sometimes everybody asks good questions. It's awesome. The one thing that I'm going to highlight here that's helped us be very successful is the IQ stations. There's about 10 of those that we've kind of in deployment right now. They're portable 3D systems. Bill's going to give a talk on it, but I'm going to beat it to it in my talk as well. We just use the Mitsubishi DLP screens. We use natural point tracking forever with 6 cameras kind of all positioned around it. But after dealing with kind of the logistics, the calibration, and keeping that in sync, we've kind of migrated towards the Smart Track from ART. It's a single nice box with 2 cameras, and it has a crazy volume. It works really good. We like it for our environment. These are used for code development, research, and presentations, and more importantly, these IQ stations help lower the barriers to adoption of this technology. Not every researcher can afford $1 million of cave hardware, and not every researcher has room for it, but these IQ stations fit nicely in a laboratory, just like a microscope fits nicely in a laboratory. Then there's information on the power walls and tile walls. Next slide, please. Okay, where am I going next with this? I think this is a picture of the cave, and there's some stuff that's cut off the bottom. I have 1 or 2 notes on the bottom, but hopefully I'll get our Mech-9 Flex looks like it's a lot like this facility, and I love this facility. You guys, you've done a great job with this. This is a great place to work. Ours is similar in that the 2 wings move in and out. I got a little note down there. It says shoes, and that's the quirk. So every cave facility has some quirks, and that's kind of the quirk of our facility is we don't let people walk on it. So I kind of am border as I'm here. I'm kind of I'm kind of toggling between, stressed about walking on it with my shoes and then wanting to walk on it with my shoes just to kind of defy the rules of my facility. But oftentimes I make the observation, I tell people that when we take people into our high performance computing data center, there's about 1 out of 100 that understands what HPC is and what's inside those computers and how they work and what MPI is. And 99 people are polite and they say, you have really cool computers. But when we bring people into the cave, people connect with the cave a lot better than they do the HPC data center. I just made up, just pulling numbers out of the hat. I said 80 out of 100 people, if we draw them a picture of the advanced test reactor or we draw them a picture of some chemistry thing, they see a picture and they might not understand it, but they're happy because they can connect with it. Visually is it's only engineers and scientists that love to see the graphs and can extrapolate graphs into something or something like that. Let's look at the next slide. I'm going to do a demo right now. Let's start with the advanced test reactor. I'm standing on top of the test reactor. This is a big pot of hot water right here, and I'm gonna move into it. But what I guess briefly, this is a photograph on the left. That's the reactor in operation with the water and the blue hue you get out of that, out of the physics from that. On the right, and I can show you kind of a picture that should match up roughly with that, with these ports ports for experiments and instrumentation as well as different control stuff. On the right is a picture of the physics that's happening inside that reactor while it's operating. Maybe if I take this off. Okay. So I'll try not to make you sick. And I guess I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna actually wear the track glasses instead of let Harry wear them. And I'm gonna do a quick setup here. This is the reactor sitting there. I'm gonna do it. If I do this right, it's going to work. If I don't, it's going to be a little weird. Oh, kill zone's kind of in a obnoxious place. Okay, I'm going to do... I'm going to add another button. Okay, so we're sitting... I think I'm mostly set up, and this will kind of work. If the stereo is making you sick, I'll try to get closer to you, and I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to talk to the wall here. This is the reactor. This is one of the first things we did in the cave. We actually, while the cave was being put together and specified and installed, we actually put this on the IQ station. So we're going to go right inside, and hopefully I'm being a little aggressive with the stereo, but hopefully I won't make you sick. As soon as I pop down here, it will feel better. Does that feel better? Okay. So this is the reactor core. So we like to take people through the top down into the reactor, and then another unique, I guess something about our facility that we do is, I'm going to turn this back right side up. In our facility, we typically operate in the closed mode. Even though we have a flex, our cave stays closed almost all the time. And as long as we have groups of 5 or 10, we let everybody walk around. And as long as they're clustered in there, so far we haven't made anyone sick, or at least too sick. But I'm going to make you guys sick a little bit. We let people walk around inside here like this. We let people look down. We let people do things like that. But a feature of the tools that we've implemented here with Rui include kind of the basic, being able to cut the reactor open, look inside. Oh, that kill zone is kind of annoying in the way there, but not a problem. So, people can look inside it, we can wander around, we can go through it. But probably the most important, one of the helpful things, I'm going to try to kind of do a picture something like that now. One of the helpful things we've done with this is we've incorporated, this is a data fusion where we have the physical CAD and we've also added modeling and so modeling and simulation results from the supercomputer we're going to superimpose here. And to kind of, I'm going to turn this stuff off. I'm going to turn the vessel off. I'm going to turn the actual center core stuff off. I'm going to try to. Let me try again. Shaky hand, not working. I'll just come up closer. Now this volume represents a region where a grid was put in and modeling and simulation was done on the core. And right now I can show the neutron flux density. I'm going to do a seeded colored iso surface. And if I selected that right, I'm going to do the ugly color map. We try to teach people not to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to set a locator and put this menu. I'll just put it over my head. Using the mouse as you might be able to see the green tip of the wand here. As I'm moving through this volume, if there's a data point, it goes green, and then when it's green, I can seed the surface. Now, one of the unique things about the test reactor, I'm going to turn this sideways, is that's a lot of reactors have a very spherical power profile where they go out radialing a sphere. One of the neat things about this reactor is it can operate at multiple power levels concurrently depending on how the control shims are turned. So in the cave we can kind of illustrate that and show people how, in the center it has a certain look, and as you go out it changes. I guess I'll put a few. So the neat thing, the thing that people like is now this, even reactor people that have worked in the reactor forever, they love this. They love being able to say, I've been teaching and training and trying to explain this as a they call them blobs of jello, shaped blobs of jello. And here in the cave they can actually get inside it. We're going to go inside again. I'm going to be aggressive and take you right inside the energy. We're now inside the reactor core. This is what it looks like. The little bumps that we see across the bottom actually are reflections. They're associated with the actual physical. So again, I'm going to turn this. I can actually turn on two different things. I can turn on either the controls. I'll just turn on the vessel here. So again, now we have the same vessel as before, but we can go inside and people can understand now. That's the physical of the reactor, and it's kind of, you see how the red stuff kind of flows around the different ports and the different pieces in there. It matches up. We have the physical with the physics, kind of this data fusion. And again, you can cut it away, or we usually have young guys driving this, and they're really good. I'm not quite as good. If you want to, if there's a people can talk about, if there's an experienced operator, experienced person, they can kind of get inside and talk about it. Okay, so let me think, was there anything else on this reactor? I think that's good. I guess I'll just leave the reactor over here for fun, and then let's go to the next slide. I guess if I leave this here, it's okay, right? Don't probably make you sick. So it's probably backward stereo right now. Okay. What I showed you there was just the reactor core, and we can show that to foreign nationals and everyone. When we get down inside the reactor building, there's places there that people don't visit that have the pumps and all the heat exchangers, and there's a lot of restrictions on visits there. But but in our cave we can take people down inside there for various things. It's used for contractors that were going to do some enhancements and some upgrades. People that were going to bid. Inside that reactor, there's all kinds of welds and special materials and metals, and a contractor was bidding on doing some weld inspection. And so to help the contractor with the bid, we took him in the cave and we said, here's where you're going to have to work. It's tight quarters. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Next slide, making complex ideas more understandable. These are examples of pictures. Protein folding. This is a protein shop brewy thing that Oliver Krylos did. On the right that's actually an electron cloud density using that volume visualizer. On the bottom here is a LiDAR. It's a LiDAR scan of my building, the kitchen, and looking up the stairs. The thing on the right, I think that's related to the hyperspectral work we did. Hyperspectral data is like a cube of data. It's a cube of data, and it was superimposed over LiDAR data, but that's not a great picture of it. Let's look at the next slide. So I'm just in the slides. I'll leave these, but on the YouTube you can watch interns talking about working in the cave. We don't really have a big staff. We kind of have a half staff, like maybe half of me and half of two other people. That one person does the demos, one person does the computers. So we utilize interns. We have interns and relationships with universities. They do great work. I want to mention that reactor vessel, the very first year, one of the first interns we had, he put are you familiar with the OSG cow? There's an OSG cow. It's modeled in. Anyway, one of the interns put the cow in the middle of the reactor and had like a barbecue. So in virtual reality, you could go see this big, $1 billion reactor and a cow in there cooking. Interns are great. They're fun. A sweet spot for one of the things we've done is maybe the hybrid visual representations. Jeff, can you do next slide? I think maybe in my next slide I might talk some about the hybrid stuff. So, and I can show you some of these. I think we might try to show these quickly. So, first one, physical and physics, advanced test reactor. We saw that kind of merging data. This second one, LiDAR, ground and air. If you were here a half hour ago, we were showing this forest. The forest is amazing. It's this scan from an airplane and then a scan from a ground-based scanner, and they're merged. And pine needles correlate from the air to the ground, essentially. Well, not exactly, but they're pretty close. So there's a cousin to this right here, shown over to the right there, and that is if you can take two LiDAR scans and correlate, different resolution LiDAR scans together and get a merged image. You can also take two LiDAR scans at different times. The green and red looks terrible, but it's an amazing. It's a cool story, and if we have a second, I'll bring it up. But the green and red shows a LiDAR scan of a canyon that was taken in 2005 and then later in 2010. And we used color to denote the difference in time. So it's kind of a brain warp. It's not good human factors. But there's in the middle of that screen, kind of on the edge of the canyon wall, there's a bright red bluff there. That bluff was colored. The red was 2005 data. In 2005, that bluff was higher. That bluff was higher. Over 5 years, that bluff has dropped. The green points are obscured right there, and I can bring it up. I can fly you right into it and show you. You can see when you get into it and zoom up to like the gopher level, you can see this delta. In that same data set, there's places where you can detect vegetation changes. People are quantifying carbon growth, carbon change. There's researchers that are really good at classifying trees, tall things, and there's researchers that are really good that have a specialty in classifying sagebrush and small grasses and stuff, and we've leveraged them. One other thing with that bluff that's dropped, you see it bright red because that was the before and now it's underneath it. As that, I'm going to use the non-technical term, as that bluff dropped, it squished out a bunch of material along the river there. and I'm sorry, I'm used to seeing this, so it makes sense to me. In 3D, it's a lot better. There's the bluff. That's the material that's squished out. See the bright green? So as the mass fell down, it pushed that stuff out. The river down there is at a different level. It's showing red just because the water was at a different level. Okay, time delta is awesome. Change detection. That's the cave that Bill was showing, that cave in California. The intention there is to do something similar with this color, is go into the cave 5 years from now and see how things have changed and see what the human impact is. Points plus CAD points. A point cloud on that upper right one there, that point cloud, that white point cloud was just LiDAR data from an airborne scanner. And then we had an engineering firm that was planning power pole placements, and they had PLS CAD data. They did some conversion steps and gave us a bunch of polys, and we just ripped out the vertex points, and we just superimposed those green things that are showing up there. Those green things are the points associated with the polys from the CAD that were used as part of the planning. And they've done that on, this was just a section of power line that was going to be near Idaho Falls. We also have data from the Bonneville Power Administration, where they have 100-mile runs where they're thinking of putting power lines. And they have their CAD data, they have their LiDAR data. We do this hybrid merging. And then hyperspectral, I mentioned that a little bit. That's kind of a cool thing where we've combined LiDAR with hyperspectral. Jeff, let's go next. Our event is soon to happen at 10 here. Okay, I'm talking more about the laboratory mission. Sophia is a packet capture visualizer. It was written in OpenGL. I think this is a 2D representation of it. So the Homeland Security people, they have a lot of expertise in cybersecurity. They invested time and effort. They built a tool in OpenGL that would show packets and geo-reference to where they're coming from. And then, of course, there's always these non-routable IP addresses, and they had this cool way of representing the non-routable IP addresses in these different pyramids kind of around. If you saw the full picture, there's kind of a view of some pyramids over here. The non-routables are on the side. The neat thing about what they did is they assigned someone to take the OpenGL to come over to the cave and see if they could do it in the cave. Just kind of as a fun project. And what they found is they ported it in a week or two. They got it working in the cave. It has it has extensive menus and control. Anytime you're dealing with cyber, they always bring up a billion menus. What do you want to see? What do you want to filter? What do you want to show? And they had a ton of menus. And Amy would love to watch these guys operate in the cave just because it's human factor craziness with all the menus, but they do a pretty good job. And then the thing I like about seeing that run in the cave is it's animated, as they can either do a live packet capture or they can replay a packet capture. But if you're standing here in the middle of the cave and they put some networks here, some here, and some behind you, they animate. They have these visual clues of, you can see those lines kind of going across the screen there, but they actually draw these vectors, these lines that shoot across. And if you're standing in the middle of the cave, you feel like you're in a war zone because you're getting shot. And the cool thing about showing that visually is just grepping and looking at screens and looking at things don't give you a sense of what's happening. But if you become immersed in this big data problem, sometimes the human brain is better at detecting patterns and understanding what's normal and what's abnormal. And wait, there's some guy in the corner here that keeps blipping. What's happening? How come I keep getting hit by him? What's he doing? And it's awesome. It's a cool thing. Discovery Channel came to the cave. They spent 2 days in the cave. And those guys are good at filming. They were fun. It was fun hanging out with them. They filmed it, and it might be on Discovery Channel someday. I don't know. Maybe they just filmed for fun. Let's look at the next one, Jeff. Industry engineering firm. They brought 3D CAD stuff in, and they do a ton of Unity. Industry does a lot of Unity. We've wanted to connect some with Unity apps. We mostly run Linux, and we don't have Unity running in the cave yet. But I know some of you have been working with Unity, and I guess I need to talk to you guys more. Arriva is a French company that does nuclear fuel processing, and they are probably they're thinking to construct a big plant with centrifuges and whatever they do to make nuclear materials, and they've seen the cave, and they say we want to do one of these IQ stations, because it would be really, really helpful for us to see how this is going to build out and what kind of, the traditional architecture thing. Power pole placement, we've had Idaho Falls Power, that's a local power. We've had the state power, it's called Idaho Power, unfortunately, very similar. And then the Bonneville Power. The IAEA is the International Atomic Energy, I think it's an inspection kind of organization that go out, and they're in Vienna. They came and they spent a day in our cave, and we had walkthrough models of a pyro processing facility, something that they might go inspect. And they spent the whole day kind of wandering through the model, walking around, and then we'd prepared a second model where changes had been made to the facility for maybe non-peaceful purposes. And then they got to walk through and kind of talk about, well, what do you look for, and how can you tell it's peaceful versus non-peaceful. The advanced test reactor, we talked to that. Knowledge transfer is a huge thing in the national laboratories because it's a gray beard. There's a lot of older people that are retiring with tons of knowledge. And I joke, I use the term rest home stories. That's when you sit around and tell people, do you remember, Fred, do you remember the day that this pump did this, and we had this crazy, we had to do this to work around it, and do you remember how this heat exchanger always kind of clunks or does this, or, you can sit and tell stories forever to a young engineer or a young person. Knowledge transfer is very good in a cave, because if you're working in that facility and you're down next to the pump or you're down next to the heat exchanger, you're minimizing your time. You just got to get in and get out and do what you got to do. But in my industry, it's really helpful to do knowledge transfer. Event center stuff. Let's look at the next slide. See if I have. Okay, IQ station. I want to get through some of this. This was kind of our first recipe for the IQ station. There's a volume visualization on it. They're about 25K. They're still about 25K. This version had a bunch of cameras on black pipe, and it worked well. We used one computer to drive the screen. The screen's just a $1,000 screen. That's a 3D TV is not that expensive. Maybe a $10,000 computer to drive it. This other computer was in there to do the tracking, and then the other components. The tracking system, I think, was $6,000 or something like that. And there's a pair of you in action there. Jeff, let's look at next. I think what some of the next slides are going to do is I want to highlight how we've made efforts to, I'm going to say how we've successfully partnered with other people. And it's kind of similar to what we're doing today, where we're trying to build collaborations and get together and talk about, what I've learned a lot from you folks. It's been very helpful to get together, because we can't do this alone. So I'm going to go through some of these IQ stations and where they've been deployed and what people are doing with them. This is there's one at Idaho State University. It's the Boise Center for Aerospace or something. I'm sorry with acronyms. This researcher is a expert in LiDAR, and she specializes in kind of the sagebrush and the low grasses. She also has done a lot of work with hyperspectral, including LiDAR systems in UAVs. She's been working to put a LiDAR system in an airplane and fly in a region and gather information. She's also done some really good work where insurance adjusters charge you a lot of extra money if your house is in a floodplain. But if you can fly it and get the LiDAR data and make a scientific case that, no, my house is 40 meters or 20 meters above, you can save a lot of money. And she's actually successfully done a lot of that. Her webpage has some really cool pictures on it, and she's located, and her facility is very, very high profile. She has the the governor and the senators and the politicians from Idaho are always visiting her, and she's showing them what she does. She has access. We're 4 hours away from the governor. The governor comes and sees me once a year or once every 3 years or something. But she has access to these politicians all the time, and she's close to them with this IQ station, and it's a connection to the lab, and it helps her science, it helps her students, and it helps us as a laboratory because we get good things. Next slide. Laboratory. Okay, L is laboratory. This is one in Pocatello, kind of closer to us. It's an Idaho virtualization laboratory. There's two researchers there, one in cybersecurity and one in the museum, that has over the last few years they've got like $8 million in grants. They've been extremely successful, and some of what they're doing is their democratization of data. So that's a big NSF thing right now, but they were doing it 6 years ago or 10 years ago when they started this. And what they did is they have a lot of scanners. They have some really good CAD people, and they had a really good web interface. And I think there's a 3D PDF format. You guys probably know about. And what they did is they took these collections. They were granted access to a lot of very rare and valuable collections of data. They put them in their scanners, and they would spend months scanning these things, very high resolution. They would overlay pictures to get the accurate color and shading. And then they would make these collections available on the internet freely. So they put them out on the net. You know, the traditional museum model is you hide it in some dusty place, and no one ever gets to visit it or look at it, right? It's just hard to get access to these models. These guys scanned it. They had it all available in digital format. We came along 2 years ago and we said, how about using this IQ station? This was a natural fit for a virtual environment, right? They already have the 3D models. They already have the 3D data. They've been sharing them for years, but they've been sharing them on 2D screens. We gave them another tool that allows them to share and explore and do model So 3D CAD models, people that are good can do it on the desktop and they can work out stuff, but occasionally it's helpful to look at it really in 3D. Next slide. University of Idaho. People, in terms of our partnership, well, presidents, they always like to go get their picture taken and talk about cool stuff the university's doing. So here's an instance where the president went and saw it, and he said, you know, look how good our university is. We do high-tech stuff. That's awesome. That's useful. But it's a resource in the library, and the researchers, University of Idaho is a huge research, they have a lot of research. It's a research institution. These are the people that have done a lot of our LiDAR scanning. That cave, they got the cave data for us. The Malad Gourd picture right there, they got that for us. And they are also doing this quantification of the forest. You know, after harvesting timber, how much was there before, how much was taken. What's the carbon change? Let's go to the next one. This is a system in Boise State. It's located in their in a biology kind of biomolecular research center. It's kind of positioned near a confocal microscope, so they have a microscope where they can take samples of plants or goo or whatever they want to look at. They can image it in the microscope. They save the file. They use ImageJ to put it together into, that's taking a stack of images and putting it into a volume, and then they can look at it on the screen. On the right is kind of that's just the normal visible male picture, but on the left here is a very distorted mouse embryo. The mouse is, you know, whatever, a 1/4 inch big or a 1/2 inch big. It's micro CT. This is a big data problem. This is actually pushing the limits of a lot of what we do, but it's an 8K. 8K image is 8K on a side. So do the 8K to the third power, and you have a ton of data points. It's a huge data set. think it's hundreds of terabytes just in raw, hundreds of tera points. It's a big data set. It's hard to image. And Patrick O'Leary worked on some new viewer technology to allow us to view that and see that in using Brewie. Jeff, let's look at next. I like this one. This is again another one in Boise State. This was funded. This is one that they wanted to do. They saw the other college across campus with their IQ station. They wanted one too. So they funded their own. We helped them put it together. This is for regional and community and regional planning. So they're going to use LiDAR. They're going to use traffic stuff. And one of their researchers was interested, I think they're still thinking of doing it. You know how electric vehicles and maybe commuters on like bicycles. Well, electric vehicles, a lot of vehicles have GPS, and for planning and efficiency kind of initiatives, kind of, I guess, EERE kind of initiatives, it's good to track how people drive, what their driving habits are. In a commuter sense, it's bicycle commuter. Where are you on the bike path, and where are you out in the street getting ran over? Where does the bike path work? Where does it not work? And if you just ask students, if you say, $20 a month, give me your cell phone my tracks of your commute. Just record your commute every day, and I'll give you money for the my tracks. Then using LiDAR data, it's distorted. It shows Idaho Falls. There's some red and blue dots that the intern threw up there that were kind of representative of my tracks. The cool thing about LiDAR data for this is if I'm dropping breadcrumbs once a second, and if I have an hour commute, I have 3,000 points, 3,600 points. But over a year, that 3,600 times the 200 days of commuting, pretty soon I get millions of data points. And LiDAR viewer is a great match for looking at millions and millions of data points. And again, our visual perception, our human visual perception is really good. One commute trip across a LiDAR thing would be very sparse, but as you commute over and over again, pretty soon the points would start to fill in, and you'd kind of have a good idea of where I think this that actually has been implemented in another flavor to help refine some of the maps of roadways. Anyway, okay, another one. Let's look at another IQ station, Amy's. You already saw the picture here. This is this Ashish as well, right? This is a different Ashish. This is Amy's Ashish, but she has a system where she's been doing the 3D human computer interaction, and she's talked about some of her work. And they're getting a cave as well, and it's the Idaho National Lab and the state of Wyoming we're neighbors, and we both have kind of energy. We have complementary energy programs. Wyoming has natural resource kind of energy programs. We have the nuclear energy programs. There's ways that you can creatively couple those together, and so we're working together. Okay, next slide, Jeff. BYU Provo, I don't know what to call this. I'm calling it a plus, IQ plus. A civil engineering professor went from Idaho, took a job in Provo. They're experimenting with a little bit different architecture. They're going to use 12 panels with, they're going to use a shared memory system with 3 of the K5000 cards. The picture that's being shown there is Show Earth with earthquake data superimposed on it. The Show Earth model is one of Oliver Krylos' kind of Hello World demo programs, but it's pretty easy to go to the USGS or go to the web and get earthquake data, and it overlays really nicely on it. Okay, next slide. Okay, I guess this is another IQ station that we use. We use it to prototype new technologies like new graphics hardware, new tracking. That's a picture of our cave room. Our IQ station is this system right here. Our cave is kind of over this part of the room, but we leave it right next to the cave. It helps out in our facility. Well, if the cave ever crashes, which it really hasn't, but once in a while if there's maintenance or something, if the cave is down, we can take people and say, well, this is the cave. Well, let me show you what it looks like on the IQ station. It looks really good. It's also helpful if you have many visitors, well, with large groups. So if we have 20 people that show up, what we usually do is we'll put 10 in the cave and 10 on the IQ station. And then we'll swap them, let them rotate 15 minutes each or 10 minutes each. And a lot of people say they like the IQ station better. And what they're usually referring to the clarity, the pixel density is, it's an HD screen in a smaller size, so they love it, and it works very well. So the caveat is, I think the people that see the screen first like the cave better. They just like whatever they see. Anyway, next slide. There's a group in our geology department at INL that they did the classic lab or university thing, extra money left over, they wanted one as well. And the laboratory has many buildings, and not everybody wants to come to your building. It's a hard model to get people to come to here all the time. So it's helpful having these distributed. One of the things that's helpful, one of the things that's helping this succeed, though, is every one of these systems was essentially installed by the same people. So we have a common software platform, we have a common kind of environment. So when people have problems or questions, we mostly do debug remote. We do debug and help and consulting remote. Okay, Jeff. I keep waiting for a siren. It'll come sometime, huh? Okay. This is the initial set of CAD that we did 2 years ago. In the last 6 months, the lab has been preparing for change out. The reactor core gets changed out every 7 to 10 years, I think. They remove all the materials and redo it all. There's in preparation for the core change out, they've done a new set of CAD. It's probably 10 times the resolution of that. When we go inside it, you'll see 10 times the amount of detail. They've also included CAD. They've done 3D CAD that shows all the tools that drop in there and how the ladders work and how you stand and what you do when you're inside the or change out. So the reactor and the changing facility is about 50 miles from the cave. And so again, getting the technology to the researchers. We're building one. They requested that we put a new one together for them. They funded the hardware. We glued it all together and made it work. We have the high resolution CAD. I can show you the CAD later today. But it was specifically created for that. Again, it also helps validate the CAD files for them to look at it. Okay, Jeff. I think I have 2 more slides, maybe 2 more slides. And I got some weird notes, I'm not sure. But the critical decisions that have helped us succeed, I guess the first of all, the most important thing is the collaborations, working with other people. We're so small, we've partnered with Bill, we did work with Patrick O'Leary, with Kitware, with Amy, with these other researchers, regional researchers. We've brought in, 5 to 10 or 5 to 7 interns every year. We've tried to working with people is what's really helped. I guess as I visited some other facilities, one thing that's helped us is this multiple sources going into the cave. Our first system is just a dual quadruplex, just a pizza box. It works really well. It's dual boot. The next source is a 5-node set of boxes like these Dells here. And they have a little more memory. They just have a 5800 card in it. Then we have another single node system it's basically the same as the first, just a little different, a little more memory. But what this allows us to do, though, is this allows us to do these rolling upgrades and all these, and we can always have one system that works. We can always have one working system, so no matter who shows up, Even if we're in the middle of reinstalling or trying something new, we can always show people stuff, and that's helpful. The video switch, I do not know. I don't remember. I forgot. It works so well, I don't even know its name. It was something Mechdyne provided. I think it's like a 40 by 40. I think we have at least 40 inputs with all the different, and we actually have, besides these three, we have 2 other systems with 8 video outs that we use for more presentations in there. Anyway, the video switches work good. Some of these Think Logicals, they don't always work the greatest, but we do use those, and they're working for us. They are working for us. We do one. This is a lot of people say this is crazy, but we use NFS over a 1 gig. So our large data sets, our 20 gig data sets, or whatever data set we're loading, it's over 1 gig, and it's worked really well. It works fast enough for us right now. Mostly dual boot. We have a lot of flexibility. Another decision that helped is the IQ station. And then sharing experiences with others. Last slide. I think it's last slide. So the rest of the story, we're mostly a brewery shop. We run Insight once in a while for multiphysics and other things. We're looking at some Unity in the future, maybe, and advice on that would be appreciated if you can offer anything there. The IQ station, it looks even sharper than the cave. I take that as a compliment. I love it. I love it when people say the IQ station looks so good. And part of the reason the IQ station looks good is because it's tracked. When you add the tracking, it just becomes immersive, and you can really do it. There's not enough funds, people, time to do this alone. Okay, so my notes under here. This is Crayola land, and this is a law student. He just graduated from university or from Indiana. He's down in Bloomington. So I wanted to connect this thing to Indiana somehow. So the law student was visiting Idaho over Christmas. I took him to the cave, and he was laying down in the flowers and throwing stuff around and doing weird stuff. Anyway, he loved it. And then what's my comment there? The future of immersive environments is smiles. And those are 2 of my friends. Those are the K-12 STEM outreach. I think getting kids interested, getting kids to love it. We have other we're taking a lot of risks. We sometimes have 100. We had 2nd graders, 3rd graders, 4th graders. We have kids come in, and they jump up and down and stand and love it. But it's my intent with that to help ensure the future of this. We have high school kids have come and said that they're more interested in we try to brainwash them to doing good in math and science and loving it. And last month in February, we had a research symposium in the building. We had a gentleman from the Department of Labor that came up to me after the meeting, and he said my son had graduated from high school and didn't really know if he wanted college or what he wanted to do, and the gentleman said that but you showed him the cave, and you showed him the nuclear reactor, and you showed him stuff like that, and so he went and signed up for nuclear engineering at Idaho State University after seeing the cave, and after kind of getting a vision. So anyway, that's my talk. We'll keep working together. This is fun stuff. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'm also happy to show you some more of the data sets. But I don't know the time-wise. Yeah?
One, now that I'm on the fence about dual booting our system.
You're on the fence about dual booting, okay.
So we can use the LiDAR viewer. I was wondering what your experience with that is. But I guess you have multiple systems plugged into this.
Exactly, yeah. So our experience, I've been working with Linux for 20 years, and my experience with dual booting is it's It's very safe, it's very straightforward, it works, it's a lot cleaner than trying to run VMs, but in practice though, I see people very seldom do it. Usually you just run what in practice we run what works best. But when we have to go to Unity, we can use another source or we can dual boot. I think dual boot is a very good way to evaluate technologies. So it's a safe way for you guys. If you're a Windows shop and everything has to run Windows and you have a free day, you can go configure dual boot and evaluate and see if it works with the hardware and see if it's worth it. Okay. Yeah.
I'm also interested if anyone has any secret ways to get Unity working in a cage system. The only thing I've seen is last week when we were at the IEEE VR conference, Sebastian Kuntz had a plugin that he's selling as a commercial product, but I'm open to other solutions.
I've seen two Unity. I guess there's three solutions then I think that I've seen. Mechdyne has a Unity solution. Mechdyne has a Unity plugin. They're releasing version 4 last week, but I think it's getting pushed to. Last email I saw that Mechdyne version 4 of their Unity plugin was coming. This Middle VR, are you talking the Middle VR?
Yeah.
The Middle VR people have this for 5,000 euros or whatever.
I think with our system though, it's like a per node or per pipe thing, so I think it might blow up the price on us a little bit. Right now we have nodes for each wall, so 6 nodes and then 7 masters. It just depends on how you configure it.
Yeah.
Texas is also per node, about 25,000 nodes.
Is TechVis per wall or per computer node?
Per computer node. So if you have like a...
Because we can cheat with quadruplex, kind of. Well, not cheat. This is being recorded. I can't say that. Yeah, TechVis was per surface or per node, and yeah. Yeah, a lot of Unity stuff happening. Okay. Let me. Can you bring up that Mac? How about just hit escape? Other escape. Or what are we doing time-wise, Bill? 10:30.
Go ahead. I'm going to this time. We'll just go right into the next talk. We have 6 hours.
What's the next talk? Is that what it was? Okay.
Modern fire drill.
Do you know what? Let me show. Okay, some of you saw this before. I'll punish you by making you see it again. I guess this is that one, data fusion. So this is airborne. This is airborne lidar of Stanley, Idaho. You can kind of see a meadow and a stream, and you can see this. I want to take in here, and it's gonna be weird on your eyes for a minute. Out here in this area, you can see the point cloud. The point density is sparse, and you can kind of just see the shadow of the trees. And like I said, there's expertise in this field that can count trees by doing that, by looking at those. But I'm going to fly into this. Hope I don't. I'm going to make you sick for a second here. Just give me a second to get it adjusted. Okay. Hopefully you're not sick. So this is the area that they scanned with the ground-based scanner. It's pretty nice density. This is just a single scan. When they did that cave, they went in and scanned it many times, or there were a lot of scans there. But what I'm trying to show you here is, what I'd like to show is like the branches on this tree. Let's see, I think I can do a pointer. You can kind of see this branch right here. It has the brown points came from the ground and the white points came from the air. So all through these branches, they were able to the accuracy and the accuracy of the instruments were within tight enough tolerances that essentially pine needles are somewhat matching up. Anyway, the people with this data are actually interested in trying to use this data to. There's a pine bark beetle, and they're wondering if they can use the scanner to kind of help quantify and detect. Is this tree? What's happening with this tree here? Is that rough on your eyes? Hope it's. I know this first one's kind of rough, but. You know what? I don't know. I'm guessing it would be within a few months. I could be off. I could be wrong though. Let me see if I can show you balls now. I want to show you that change detection. It might take me a minute to find it though. I don't have scripts for all this stuff here because the path is a little bit different. Let's see if, okay, so this is that weird, again, I apologize if it's gonna, I'll do my best to not make you sick. And we can close the cave later too if you want to stay this, if you have time this afternoon, we can close the cave. Okay, so the cool thing about this LiDAR stuff is there's hundreds of millions of points, or some have billions of points, but you can fly this and there's a power line running up this side, there's a power line running down here. Both power lines have places where they drop down into the canyon floor and they pump water. They pump water up onto the flat area. You can see where it's irrigated. I want to fly to that red, kind of that red bluff. This is, if your eyes aren't going crazy, you should see a red bluff right there and the green area down below where it kind of squishes through. And now I'm going to go in a little further. Water level's a little different. There's difference in vegetation. Let's kind of slowly move up on the bluff. A little jerky today, but so if your stereo glasses are working, you might see kind of a red surface across the top here and a little green shadow underneath. And like with all immersive environments, we can just look underneath and see that it's green under. There's the green plane underneath and the red plane above. The delta between those two, if you could put a scale or a measurement tool and measure the delta there. There's another interesting use of this. You know what? It's usually not quite this jerky. I apologize for the slow. Well, I guess I can drive faster too, but I like to say we don't have much at all. So this is another delta. Can you? I hopefully that you can kind of mainly use the front screen here. I think the way we got the side screen's weird, but if you use the front screen, you can see a delta here again. This is where the side of the mountain. This is a man-induced delta. If you fly down here, you'll start to see. I'll fly along here carefully. You'll start to see piles of gravel. This is a gravel pit. So in terms, and this is conveyor belts and stuff that was captured. This was all airborne captured, but so here's a region of the gravel pit that has been dug out and then piled up here. and then used for whatever. It's kind of cool. You can see various. If your eyes aren't going weird, there's a little fissure here in the red. That was where a stream or a canal was before. You can kind of see it going off the edge. I'm going to take you over to this region of crops here. This can be used for agricultural purposes as well. There's a difference in the state of there's another height difference here. That's a crop difference where, whatever time of year it was captured the green. The new data, it was higher. It might just be a time of year thing. If you look at these trees here, those trees are red. Those were in 2005 they existed. I'm going to try to adjust the angle. So the trees kind of on the horizon, they existed in 05. And there are no green dots associated with the 2010 data. And then if we fly quickly over this direction, these trees show kind of a more normal canopy, a red canopy underneath the green canopy. So there's the change detection. So again, without glasses, I mean, looking at this is crazy. You can't really tell what's going on. But you take your glasses off, it's really hard to understand this data. But in a 3D environment, with your glasses on, it makes a lot more sense. I think this is 500 million points or something like that. You see some level of detail stuff. That's that adaptive octree. As you fly in, you get a little more detail. This is fairly sparse. Let's see if there's another data set of interest. I'll show the other hybrid. This is that other flavor of. Oh. You know what? I put these. You can put these on upside down. Did you know that? It would look weird. They won't work. I know it will look terrible if you do that. This is another. This was part of that power line run. I think an amazing thing about this LiDAR data is the conductors, those power lines, how they showed up. It's also amazing how well they show up in the cave, even though the cave's all black. But those lines, this is a substation south of Idaho Falls. You can go right down on the road. I'm going to fly up the road a little bit. Oh, sorry. This is where we got the polygons from the engineering firm of a power pole. So you see how it essentially looks like a pole, but like all LiDAR data, once you get close enough, you'll see the points. But supposedly if you were a landowner, you could come to your home, say this is your home. You could say, I don't like that one. But you could also look at this another way. You could also look and say there's all these other power lines that are going to be replaced by a single line or whatever. I'm going to zoom out and go. This is another potential. I want to show you another potential use that I think should be investigated or could be utilized with this, especially in a cave. We demonstrated the change detection. Okay. This is a freeway overpass. So I think it would be helpful over a 20-year period to go scan bridges. The bridge infrastructure in the United States is a huge oh, it's a huge political thing right now, all the bridges, what state are the bridges in? It would be interesting to scan. It would be helpful if you had scans from years ago, if you could compare them to current scans. But there's a bridge here, and that's a potato cellar there. You can fly through cellar. These are people's houses. There's actually a dam in this one too, a waterway. Okay. Tell me when to quit. Do I need to be quiet now? Be done?
Yeah, we can switch over to
Okay.
the webcast. Is that good for the break?